The atmosphere inside the White House was thick with anticipation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had just entered the Oval Office, flanked by his advisors, his face set in determined lines. Across the room, former U.S. President Donald Trump sat with his arms crossed, a steely expression on his face. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. This meeting had been long awaited, a high-stakes discussion about U.S. support for Ukraine in its ongoing war effort. The room was filled with White House officials, military advisors, and top diplomats, all hoping for a productive discussion. But what they got was something entirely different. As Zelensky began speaking, outlining Ukraine's dire need for continued U.S. assistance, Trump leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. But the longer Zelensky talked, the more obvious it became. Trump was growing impatient. Zelensky was emphasizing the importance of American leadership when Trump suddenly slammed his palm down on the table. The sound echoed through the room, and every head turned. "You people always come here with the same story," Trump snapped, his voice sharp. "America has done more for Ukraine than anyone else. How much more do you want?" Zelensky blinked but kept his composure. "Mr. President, U.S. support is not just about Ukraine. It's about global security. If Russia isn't stopped now," Trump cut him off, shaking his head. "Oh, please. Give me a break. That's the same line every time. Why don't you ask Germany? Ask France. Why is America always the one footing the bill?" There was an awkward silence. Some of the U.S. officials in the room shifted in their seats. Ukrainian advisors exchanged nervous glances. Zelensky took a deep breath, keeping his voice measured. "Because, Mr. President, the world looks to America for leadership." Trump scoffed. "Leadership? You mean money?" "Because every time I hear leadership, it means write us another check." The tension in the room was now unbearable. Zelensky leaned forward, locking eyes with Trump. "Mr. President, this is not charity. It's an investment in the future of democracy. If Ukraine falls, Russia won't stop there." Trump's expression darkened. He pointed a finger at Zelensky. "Let me tell you something. I was elected to put America first. Not Ukraine. Not Europe. America." Zelensky's jaw tightened. "And what happens when Russia turns its attention to NATO countries? What happens when they test your allies?" Trump waved a hand dismissively. "That's their problem. If NATO wants to step up, let them. But I'm not sending American tax dollars to fund another endless war." Zelensky's tone sharpened. "So you're saying America should abandon its allies?" Trump narrowed his eyes. "I'm saying America should stop being everyone's piggy bank." By now, voices were rising, and advisors on both sides were growing visibly uncomfortable. A U.S. military official whispered something to a White House staffer, while a Ukrainian diplomat shifted nervously in his chair. The meeting was spiraling out of control. Zelensky pressed on, refusing to back down. "You keep talking about America first. But what happens when America finds itself alone? If Russia succeeds, China will take it as a green light to act. The world will become more dangerous. This isn't just about Ukraine, Mr. President. It's about the future." Trump rolled his eyes. "Oh, spare me the doomsday talk. Every leader I meet tells me the world will collapse if we don't give them more money. Guess what? The world keeps spinning." Zelensky, now visibly frustrated, said through clenched teeth, "So what's your plan? Just walk away?" Trump leaned forward, lowering his voice. "My plan is simple. If you want to win, fight your own war. Stop expecting the U.S. to fix your problems." For the first time, there was an undeniable silence. No one dared to speak. Trump sighed, rubbing his temples. Then, with a dismissive wave of his hand, he leaned back in his chair. "This meeting is over." Zelensky stared at him for a long moment before slowly standing. His face was blank, but the disappointment in his eyes was unmistakable. He extended a hand toward Trump. After a brief hesitation, Trump shook it. The handshake was short, firm, and cold. No words were exchanged. Zelensky turned and walked out, his advisors following close behind. The room remained silent as the Ukrainian delegation disappeared through the doors. Trump exhaled sharply, looking around the room at his staff. "What a waste of time," he muttered under his breath before standing up and walking out. The media exploded within minutes. Reports flooded in about the disastrous meeting, with headlines like "Trump humiliates Zelensky" and "White House tensions boil over." Political analysts debated whether this would mark a shift in U.S.-Ukraine relations. Within hours, the Ukrainian government released a carefully worded statement, We remain committed to working with all of our allies to ensure peace and security. Meanwhile, Trump supporters praised his firm stance, calling it real leadership. Critics, however, warned that America's global standing could be at risk. The big question now loomed: was this the beginning of a diplomatic rift that could change the course of global politics?